My name is Billy Harfosh, Star Worldwide Networks in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. And if you drive around Scottsdale, you see a lot of Teslas. They're all over the place. The problem is, I've been seeing these bumper stickers and they say, I bought my Tesla before Elon went crazy. Well, what does that mean? We have a form of political intimidation. We have a form of activism happening in our country. And dare I say, some people are calling it domestic terrorism. They're keying Teslas, they're smashing windows, they're throwing Molotov cocktails, and it's absolutely criminal. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You heard Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about that. And this kind of thing should not be happening in our country. I have a very interesting guest today. He is one of the most controversial and uniquely positioned voices on modern activism and political manipulation. Mr. Adam Swart, CEO of Crowds on Demand. Adam, you're being accused, I'm on Twitter, I'm on X, you're being accused of organizing and funding these political protests. What say you, sir?
Well, I would say, unless without me knowing I'm one of the Real Housewives of Silicon Valley, I think they suspect wrong that we're involved, because I think the real funders of this whole thing are the real ex-tech wives of the Bay Area, of the tech founders. Not going to name specific names, of course. But yeah, we're not involved in that. I'll tell you why. Number one, we are a business, and it doesn't even benefit me as a businessman to do things that are illegal, right? Burning cars, vandalizing buildings, blocking streets, these things are against the law, right? So it wouldn't behoove me to do it, even if I had no moral qualms about it.
So, Adam, the issue is this is actually just beginning. This is something that is getting a lot of traction online. There are websites out there on the dark web that are doxing Tesla owners. In other words, if you own a Tesla, they say exactly where that person lives. They own a Cybertruck, they own a Model 3, whatever it might be. And it's getting to be quite dangerous. Number one, for a normal American citizen that owns a Tesla. Number two, for the business, the damn stock is crashing. And number three, maybe most importantly, is the violence that's happening. I'm not going to go so far as to say today, Adam, that these people are terrorists or domestic terrorists. I'm not going to go there. But in some circles, people are accusing them of becoming domestic terrorists. Is this a form of terrorism in your mind?
No, I don't believe it is. I think that you can call something law breaking. You can call it vandalism. You can call it, I think you can call it a lot of things, right? There's violence. These are unacceptable forms of protest. They're not really protest, but I think it's too extreme. And I think it's setting a very bad precedent that can be used against conservatives later on. I mean, you saw all of the huge violations of individual liberties and rights that went on under the Biden years. For example, parents being investigated when they spoke out at school board meetings. I think it's a very, very strong thing to call something terrorism. And that needs to be used sparingly. And I fear that in our society, we just jump to calling everybody we don't like Nazis or pedophiles and now terrorists, right? And it's like, let's slow down a little bit. Let's make sure that the people who are breaking the law are held accountable, but let's not go too far, because one thing, Billy, is once freedom is taken away, it's never given back. So if you give the government the power to start really cracking down on individual liberties, I think it's a very dangerous precedent.
Well, Adam, this show here and myself personally, we fight for freedom of speech. And I'm kind of a old soul and probably should have been born in a different time, different decade. And I like a good protest. I like a good political process. I think it's healthy for America. What I don't like, what I don't agree with, things like the BLM riots, things like this Tesla protest and ruining people's cars and going after dealerships. And it's just starting to crank up here. There's a lot of things organized across the country, even this weekend, to protest outside dealerships. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. We just need to keep the violence in the criminal aspect out of it. Let's cut to the chase here. There's no better man in the country to ask than you. How are these things organized virally, and who the hell is funding this thing?
Well, I sort of joked about the real tech wives, but I think there's another component here, Billy, which is I suspect that short sellers of Tesla are involved. You mentioned earlier the challenges with the stock, right? So short sellers, for your audience, are people who make money when a stock goes down. Most of us who own stocks make money when the stock goes up, but these short sellers make money when it's gone down. And now, historically, that's been a very bad bet. Elon has kind of proven everybody wrong for the last 10 plus years that has bet on him or bet against him, right? So I suspect that there are short sellers who are apolitical, but see an opportunity, given Elon Musk's involvement with the Trump administration, to say, hey, we can make this issue bigger if we fund these protests. Because, yes, I mean, there's millions of dollars of funding going on of these protests, but these guys have billions at stake. So it could be quite a worthwhile investment for certain short sellers.
So what I want to point out is, for lack of a better term, the sheep, meaning the people, the boots on the ground that are actually carrying out these protests. Very often, they don't understand the money behind it. They don't understand the powers that be behind it. Very often it's billionaires and people that have a hidden agenda, to your point about the short selling. Speak to the protesters out there that are out there vandalizing. They don't even know that they're actually being manipulated.
I think it's right to a certain degree. And by the way, if you vandalize, it is and it should be you who goes to jail. And I love the fact that there's a tough on crime district attorney, Mitchell, in Maricopa County. You mentioned Scottsdale. She's going to take this stuff very seriously. And I think that all district attorneys should. I think protesters should realize that we are so fortunate to live in a country that affords us the right of free expression. You could literally hold a billboard that says F Elon Musk, right? Or any kind of vulgarity about him, right? Some people might disagree with that, but it is a legally sanctioned form of protest. So my message to the protesters is, if you're mad at Elon Musk, there are many, many legal ways for you to express that frustration. You do not need to use violence, and you do not need to vandalize, because that is only going to lead to your ultimate prosecution. And I oppose the doxing, by the way, of Tesla owners. I've if for only reason for selfish reasons, I've owned a Tesla for over 10 years, different vehicles. So I've always been a fan of the car. So don't dox me. And I also oppose, though, the efforts on the right where they're doxing people who are spitting on Teslas. I oppose cancel culture. I think there needs to be a penalty for people who are engaged in vandalism, but I'm against this sort of social type of penalty where we try to ruin somebody for one mistake. Conservatives should be better than that.
Now, you are a former self-proclaimed lefty, or shouldn't put words in your mouth. Are you still a lefty?
I think I would describe myself as an independent at the moment. I don't look, Billy, I don't believe either party has earned my vote or adherence to their orthodoxy, because I think both parties are frankly far too extreme. So it's for me to make up my mind on various issues and various elections, which party is in the right on which particular matter. So I'm an independent. You are right that I started off my career. I'm from California. As on the liberal side of things, I worked on a lot of Democratic campaigns. I think the left has just gone way too far. I have a lot of trepidation about the right as well, but I think at least the right is willing to have dialogue to a far greater extent than the left. And that really is an indictment on the left, because the left really historically has been the party of ideas and tolerance.
Speaking right now to Adam Swart. He's the CEO of Crowds on Demand. So, Adam, there's a very interesting concept that you know a lot about, a false flag. And we can relate that not only to international wars and international policies, but also right here at home. So something that you speak about, I think, is brilliant. You talk about the right, the conservatives, they're kind of being baited and trapped by the left. And let me explain for my audience. If the right wants mass deportations for foreign protesters, we saw an example recently of a gentleman that was protesting, the whole Israel-Gaza, and now he's in big trouble. The problem is we live in a democracy, right? So we have change in government. If we start to enforce and enact those laws and set up those cultural norms of deporting people because of protests, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be weaponized by the other side 4 years from now or 8 years from now. Right. Am I onto something here? Can you speak to that?
I could not agree with that more. And if you look at what the Biden administration did to conservatives, they used powers that my understanding was they got from the Bush administration under the Patriot Act, right? Where the Bush administration sent federal law enforcement to go spy on a bunch of Muslims and entrap them in many cases, people who may have had radical views but had no intention of doing any violent act. And federal law enforcement actually radicalized those people, and then they arrested them for the thing that they were planning to do that federal law enforcement was pushing them to do. The Biden administration used the exact same tools against conservatives. And I, as a freedom-loving person like yourself, Billy, I think conservatives need to be very cautious about the slippery slope of free speech. And as soon as you start saying that, okay, this guy is a real piece of you-know-what, let's deport him, let's arrest him, let's make his life miserable, you're setting a very, very negative precedent, and it's not one that I'm okay with.
I want to get back to Elon Musk here, and to some people watching this show, they probably hate Elon Musk. They don't support Doge. They don't support a person who is a non-elected official who is, in fact, Trump's biggest financial supporter throughout the campaign, and now he's got tremendous power. But he's not a politician. He was never elected by the American people. To your point about sometimes being careful what you wish for because the administration ultimately will flip. If 4 years from now we have somebody on the left that is an unelected official, i.e. George Soros' son or somebody else, that's involved with a new administration, guess what? Elon Musk has made this a societal and a cultural and a political norm. So again, I think the right, to your point about entrapment, the right needs to be really careful about how we run our government right now under Donald Trump, because the left will do the same things in the coming years.
Right. Anything that you give them the power to do, the other side will use it against you. So yeah, I think conservatives are being a little bit trigger happy with asserting presidential privilege. I mean, also when you're looking at what's happening in the courts, right now, conservatives are saying there shouldn't be judicial oversight. Well, judicial oversight helped rein in the Biden administration as well. So I think that what separates us from Russia is not that we're a democracy and they aren't, but which is true. It's that we have true checks and balances and they don't, right? So I think that it's always uncomfortable when you feel like you've gotten a mandate and you can't do everything you want. But that's how our founding fathers envisioned it. And even Obama in 2008, who won a landslide and had House and Senate, he almost had 2/3 in the Senate. He still couldn't get a lot of what he wanted through. And I think that was a good thing.
Truthfully, if we're calling out the elephant in the room here, these protests, this vandalism, this criminal activity against Tesla as a company and against Tesla owners, yes, it's a protest on Elon. Yes, it's a protest on Doge. But truthfully, it's a protest on Orange Man bad. These people are not Donald Trump supporters. These people do not support Donald Trump. These people hate Donald Trump because Orange Man is bad. My question for you is very simple, Adam. Why is the left so triggered, even now in the second term, by Donald Trump?
I think that unfortunately, why are they triggered by Donald? I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but to go into it, he's everything that they rant against, right? If you think about it, he's white, he's male, he's old, he's privileged, he says insensitive things, he has a very old school attitude on women. I mean, I think that all upset them in the first term. I think what upsets them more than that is that he does not respect the norms, right? And that upsets a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of legitimate criticism of Trump that he doesn't respect the norms. And his fans like that he doesn't respect the norms, right? So this, including with Elon and anything else, he doesn't talk like presidents used to talk like. He doesn't act like presidents used to act. So it's something very different for people. And it's certainly an acquired taste.
Elon Musk has more money than God, billions upon billions and billions of dollars. So I asked this question, understanding that he has what we like to call FU money. However, now he's wearing his political hat. Actually, he's wearing his MAGA hat. And he's in this shitstorm. His stock is tanking. He's got some real issues culturally. The narrative has flipped. He used to be a poster child, a darling boy of the left, and now half the country hates the guy, but he's got Tesla and Starlink, and I can go right down the SpaceX. Should Elon take a step back from politics and focus on running his businesses?
Well, far be it from me to give advice to Elon but he's always been willing to take short-term consequences in exchange for what he believes is the long game. So he's okay. It doesn't bother him that he's down hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever, because he sees this as part of a broader goal that includes settling Mars and revolutionizing the energy industry, right? So I think that he's not the type of business person who sees this setback and says, okay, I got to remove myself from government. That's the logical thing to do. But I think I said Trump doesn't obey the norms. Musk also does not obey the norms, right? Musk does things his own way. For someone that rich, he's constantly putting everything he has on number 12, right? He's a gambler, and he's willing to take those risks constantly and gamble it all constantly in hopes of achieving better and better things. Logically, of course, he should take a step back, but will he? I think that's very unlikely.
There's something very interesting psychologically there, too. We could all learn from what you just said about Elon. He goes against the grain. You use the word logic a lot there. He's not always logical in what he does, and that's probably why he's one of the most incredible geniuses and business people and engineers, inventors of our time.
Billy,
go ahead.
I'll put it this way. If you think of anyone who's a billionaire, right? They had opportunities to cash out their companies at 10 million, at 100 million, and who knows what sum, where they could have more money than they need to live very, very comfortably or luxuriously. And they said no. That is actually takes a certain degree of insanity to actually say no and to keep betting. So I think there's a reason that billionaires have a certain personality type that is kind of a little bit nuts, a little bit eccentric, right? It's because they are natural gamblers, because most of us would have taken the easy way out a lot sooner than they did.
Well, for some reason, I'm not a billionaire because that's you just described my exact personality, but whatever. That's a conversation for another day. So listen, Adam Swart, CEO of Crowds on Demand, thank you for coming on the show today. I want to establish two things for our audience. Number one, all of the rumors are not true. You are not behind organizing this criminal activity against Tesla owners and against Tesla as a company. Yes or no?
Not at all. We have nothing to do with anything criminal that's going on.
And in full disclosure for my audience, Crowds on Demand, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to this. Crowds on Demand, do you organize protests? Do you organize political protests? And maybe you could speak to that and give us some examples of what you do.
Sure. Well, we organize a lot. People always put us as organizing around a particular candidate, which we do certain times, but a vast majority of our advocacy is on behalf of issues. So that is to say that if someone has an issue they're very passionate about, an advocacy group, and we specialize, I would say, in giving voice to the silent majority, because a lot of times you have an issue where you have a small group of people who are just very loud and they always get their way because they go to every meeting and they're just extremely loud. What we do is we give voice to the other side that might have the funds to bring us in, where we can bring in genuine supporters of an issue, but who may not otherwise have the occasion to turn out because they have jobs, they have families, they have responsibilities. So a lot of what we do is give voice to the interests of the silent majority and make sure that those views are heard.
And just real quick before I let you go, Adam, real quick, pull back the curtain for me. Is it true that very often political activism, protests that we see on the streets of America, that those people, those boots on the ground, are they paid actors very often?
Almost all the time, actually, Billy. There's no such thing as an organic protest. They're all bought and paid for one way or another, because if there's a union guy out there, right, he's being paid by the union. If it's some activist group, some activist leader, he's getting paid by a 501c through his work as a 501c4 leader, right? Everyone's getting paid somewhere. And if you're not getting direct cash compensation, you're getting paid through Instagram likes, right? You're trying to flex, like the housewives in the BLM movement who showed up and took pictures of themselves at the BLM rallies, right? Everyone has an incentive for being somewhere. It doesn't mean they don't support an issue. It just means they have a reason for being somewhere. Our time is valuable.
Well, I appreciate your honesty on that, and I appreciate your kindness and intellect and talents, because I think it's important for the American people, the American public, to understand a lot of these things you're seeing, whether you agree with the protest or the issue or whatever it might be in the past and in the future. A lot of these things you're seeing on your televisions and on your smartphones, they're actually guns for hire, for lack of a better term. They're guns for hire. These are paid actors, and I think a lot of people in the public don't truly understand that concept.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to know, but I don't think it negates the fact that people support an issue. But it's like you're paid to host your show. That doesn't mean you're speaking your mind. You're not being paid for your opinions. You're being paid to show up, right? So that's how I describe paid activists. Now, if someone's doing something illegal, I condemn it wholeheartedly. But I think it's important that people are paid for expressing their views, because if you don't pay people, then the only people who can come are people with trust funds or no families or no responsibilities in life. And that's no fun either, because you're giving a disproportionate share to a certain select group that isn't representative.
Adam Swart, CEO of Crowds on Demand. Like I told you off the air earlier, we're going to have you into our beautiful studios here at Star Worldwide Networks. We're right off of Camelback, right near Fashion Square Mall. I can't wait to have you in studio. Thank you so much for being on the show. Very interesting stuff. I hope you don't have to be back on the show next week and this thing doesn't blow up over the weekend, but I'm seeing a lot of bad actors online that are organizing violence and criminal activity, and I hope that cooler heads can prevail and law enforcement can do their job and we don't see a big blow up in our country this weekend. Adam, thanks for being on the program.
My pleasure, Billy. Anytime.
My name is Billy Harfosh, broadcasting from Star Worldwide Networks in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. And if you have a Tesla, you might want to buy one of those bumper stickers that says, I bought this before Elon went crazy because nobody wants their car keyed. But in all seriousness, to anybody out there that watched this show today, I understand that you're angry with Doge. I understand that you love Doge. Two sides to the coin. This is America. But there's no place for violence or vandalism. That's not what we're about. We're about freedom of speech. We're about protesting, but we have to do it in a peaceful way. Like, subscribe, share this video. We'll be back with more explosive interviews.